Welcome back to the Crown Factory, episode 6 we're up to at the moment. Last week we got the engine started a little bit prematurely, but we wanted to get that done just in case there are any problems. We had a power steering leak, but I was worried about stuff like, the radiator, we put a lot of welding into that, and the sump. The sumps can be a bit temperamental when you weld them, but it's all good, there's no leaks. Fingers crossed it stays like that. This week we're moving more on to the powertrain side of things, so brakes, suspension, and the diff. The standard diff is a 7.5 inch crown wheel. They've got tiny axles and they will fold under pressure. They will snap an axle real quick. We are going to put a 9 inch in the car. We were going to put a G series diff from a Hilux in there, but being that the weight of the car and what I want to do with it, a 9 inch is the best option when it comes to gear ratios and strength. So we're going to put the car up in the air. We're going to have mate Matt Rogan from Rogan Industries around to give us a hand. We're going to talk you through what we're going to do. Some of you may remember Matt from Kevo, episode 4. Kevin gets a banging rear end, or we're going to need bigger tubs in Al's Crown. Matt is our local chassis fabricator and does a mean job. And he's helping us out today. We're doing a bit of a trade swap actually. We've got his Camaro in the background here, so we're going to do a bit of work on each car. So as I said, 9 inch. We've done 9 inch conversions before, but today is a little bit different because we're going to be using some floating hubs, which is overkill for the Crown, but it's something we haven't done before, and I don't mind having a bit of overkill anyway. So Matt, talk us through the process. Where do we start? What do we do?
So we are basically wanted to have in it factory like a 3-link. We're going to put a 4-link in it. No panhard bar, triangulated. It's kind of similar to what we did in the Crown.
Yep.
The other Crown. And we're just going to make it up as we go, as we usually do. And we'll see how we end up in the end, but it should be good. Got some stuff out of some other cars, and we're gonna make it work.
Sweet. So it is very similar to Al's Crown in the sense of chassis design. They did develop and made them a bit wider as the time went on, but still very similar. And as Matt said, no panhard, so 4-link, and we're going to piece it all together. Al's already removed the diff and the fuel tank to give us some room in here, so we're starting with a blank canvas, and now we can hook in and get the job done. 2-day job, you reckon?
One day if we, get into it.
No smoko.
No smoko for you.
Making heaps of progress. We've got the housing tacked in there with some brackets. Matt makes these brackets. They're just a laser cut generic 4-link kit. Matt's changed some stuff, and as you can see by the scribbles on there, and we're at the stage now where we are mounting up the shocks. So we don't know what size the shocks can be, so Matt just uses some box alloy as to set a length. But we've also got to make sure that there's going to be room for the spring and everything for the fuel tank, which I'm sure Matt's thinking about now. Yes.
That's what we're thinking about.
The housing, this housing is just a generic 9-inch sheet metal housing. There's plenty of them available. And the arms actually came from what were they from? A Chevelle, wasn't it? Chevelle?
Top ones are from a 70 Chevelle.
So 70s Chevelle top arms and Camaro lower?
Yeah, Camaro.
Is that also a thanks, Wazza?
There's 3rd gen Camaro lowers.
Okay, right on. So there you go. We actually didn't have to mount modify these top arms. We chopped them down and ran a tap through them just to make them shorter. They've only got one bracket on that upper, which is just tacked there. It looks kind of funky as it is, but these are going to get boxed in and welded to the housing, and we can also make the other one on top while the diff's out of the car. But everything is going smoothly so far. We've just done this shock, tacked this bar in up the top here for a shock mount, and yeah, keep going.
That's like a good chassis gap. Probably go to there and then bring your wheel in a little bit more.
Okay. Well, you're pushing mine further out.
Yeah, I know. So we'll just undo that bolt and then you push yours back in.
So how much am I going in? You ready?
Yeah.
About that?
You gap to the inner rail.
Yeah. It's good. We've got the diff out of the car and on the bench. That's so we can finish off the brackets, and then after that we can take it over to Matt's to throw it on the diff jig. But before we put it on the jig, we didn't know a width for the diff. So we've got the trailer axle in the car here with a set of wheels, and we have the car down on the ground to check the clearance between the rail and the guard. This is a 235 60/15 mounted on a set of Outlaw drags. These wheels came from Wheel and Tyre Kingdom. Nino over there gave me some advice. He's got plenty of wheels to choose from, and this is what I settled on. I've got beadlocks. I did not need beadlocks, but I wanted them just because everyone loves beadlocks. So this is going to be my kind of racing wheel, and also when I want to get power to the ground. I've also got a set of these. This came from our mate Mark from Barra Brothers. I gave him some sizes and he made me this set. These are a Southern Ways Shadow 2, which Mark has built for me. Mark's got a pretty cool YouTube channel too if you want to check that out. Link is in the description. So this is a 9.5 inch width with a 14mm offset. These are 8s with 0 offset. So there is a size difference, which I'm making Matt deal with over here, but how do you get around that, Matt? Is it you tell us the process and what's going on? So
well, we've made it as narrow as we can with those, assuming that we're going to have more wheel out, also a little bit more wheel in.
Yep.
So we'll probably factor that with a spacer. We kind of settled on making these a nice fit, can run super low, not going to rub anywhere.
Yep.
And whatever we have to do to make those fit, we'll do with a spacer. Otherwise, you're sort of compromising 2 sets of wheels.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this way, you're going to have one set that fit perfect. The other side might need a 10mm spacer, which we can get laser cut, you know, so they fit really nice.
There you go. So these wheels I had made up, they actually don't fit the front either. It's just my cock up, but I really like the look of these, and if not, I'll see what happens. But same with these wheels, I like the look of them, but if they don't work with the car, I can also use them on the Fairlane was my backup plan too. So we have got a center line marked on the axle, and now we can get a width here.
Yep.
Sweet.
Strip it down, cut the housing down, we'll probably put the floater hubs in, put the housing back in the car, check brake caliper clearance. We probably need to clock that around, see where it's going to hit the rail.
Yep.
And then we can, you know, pull it back out finally.
Sweet.
Weld her up, paint it, put it back in.
Here's the floating hubs. These came from Race Products. So how these work is you've got this bottom spindle, I suppose you call it. Al actually had to machine this down to suit the 3-inch tubes on the housing. They come to suit a 3.5-inch housing. You can machine them down easy. So these use a Falcon brake kit, so you can use Falcon or Willwood. Prefer to go the Falcon way. So there's the backing plate which uses the Falcon rear rotors and the Banksia handbrake assembly and everything. So I'm going to assemble these and then put them in the car so we can figure out, figure out caliper clearances, mate? Is that what it is?
Yeah, we'll check the calipers aren't going to hit on the rail, because that's pretty common when you start narrowing stuff.
Yep.
And also just confirm, because we've got floating hubs, we can actually put the wheel on and make sure our diff width is correct. Different to flanged axles where you actually need the axle. So we can actually set it all up, and we could technically roll the car around if we wanted to today.
Oh, sweet, nice. All right, so then bolts are going in the backing plate, and then this is the outer hub with the wheel bearing and everything there. And the advantage to a floating hub is if you do snap an axle, you're not going to put yourself into the wall or lose a wheel or anything. So just the axle snaps and the wheel still floats around because it's supported via the hub there. So get these assembled and bolted on to the diff.
So we've just slid the floater in with the spindle and everything sort of assembled for now. Probably the biggest trap with these is one's right hand thread and one is left hand thread. You want to make sure that the right hand is on the right side so that the wheel is always doing it up. Technically it could probably undo it, then your wheel will fall off.
What, if you got too much power, you undo the nut. But if you brake really hard?
Well, you could counteract that. If you did like 100 k's of forward, you'd have to do 100 k's of reverse.
Floater hubs fitted back onto the housing. That is to check to make sure that the diff width is okay, to make sure Matt didn't cut it to the wrong length, and also to check the caliper clearance against the chassis rail. When we did Al's car, it was really tight, and we wanted to make sure that this one wasn't going to clash. It doesn't. We've got them positioned in the suitable location. We'll just put a center punch on the hubs too to make sure that when we pull it all apart, that's where we can weld them on. We've also thrown the third member in the center into the housing to get a tail shaft length. So we called up the crew at GJ Drivelines. They did us a shaft for Kevo, and they are the go-to if you want a performance shaft. They do alloy, carbon, chromoly, whatever you want. Gave them a length which was 1390 from the seal face to the uni. That one's going to get made, so that's one job ticked off the list. Now it's all going to come back out over to Matt's house to throw it on the jig, where it can be bolted to the jig. So when we weld it up, we can minimise warpage. Matt's got a big chromoly bar that goes through into through the axles, so it doesn't move. And that also makes sure that the diff is straight when you're welding it on, so you're not going to accidentally weld in some camber or toe into your diff. So back out over to Matt's house. Let's get it done. Matt's also mentioned that he loves to specialise in Toyota Crown diffs. So.
Yep. Especially dirty old shit ones.
you can call him at 1300 chassis guy and he'll hook you up. The diff center I've got a hold of is a full spool, and a full spool on the street isn't fun unless you've got a drift car or something like that. Good for drag racing, great application for drag racing, but street car, I'm going to drive the wheels off this thing. I do not want a full spool. So I have opted for an Eaton True Trac. This one came from Harrop. This is I suppose the best way to put it would be a gear-driven LSD. Great application for a street car, perfect for this. The 9-inch is an overkill for the car. We've already been through that. This is a 35 spline centre. Can handle way more power than I'm going to make, but definitely a great addition to your street car. If you want a solid LSD just so you can spin two, leave some 11s down the road, this is what you're going to need. Also legal, unlike a full spool, which is illegal. Got legendary pro stock racer Dave Rogan here to help us today, mate. Thanks for your expertise.
Oh, mate, I've got nothing better to do. Plus, my car's been here and I'm a bit worried about it.
Okay.
I'm extremely worried about it, all right? But I'm saying nothing. I say nothing. Technology. I'm going with the flow, all right?
You can tell we use this a lot. Get in there, please. Alright, green's getting there. We'll wait till it.
How many beeps has it got to do?
You watch it go red. 95, 97, twisting the vice. That's it. Something's always got to fight you. We got halfway there and we found that the bearings off the spool are the smaller bearing, and the Eaton True Trac uses a larger bearing, so we've had to order some bearings. Dave ordered the wrong ones, so we'll blame it on him. So we've got to wait for those until Monday so we can get the center in, but now we can move on to doing other more exciting stuff like the brakes hook in. The brakes on the back of the car are just an FG Falcon caliper and rotor. They work with the Race Products floater hub. Really cool to have an OEM caliper on the car. And for the front, I've opted for a set of hopper stoppers. Hopper stoppers are an Australian owned and made company. They do brake kits for many vehicles. I've used them in the past, I've had plenty of cars. The most recent one was Al's car, which he ended up using the AU caliper, which is a PBR caliper. I've opted for the billet 4-pot caliper on the front purely because I wanted these look so good, that's why. And also, I sized my wheels correctly. The reason why Al couldn't run these brakes was because he didn't have the wheels big enough for them. So these wheels still fit under a 15-inch wheel, so I'm going to put them on the front. I've done a bit of a dummy assembling here. There is some modifications to do to the spindle and stuff, but hopper stoppers have sent out the instructions, which I read and made sure to follow. So I've just got to grease some wheel bearings to put those on. New pads, new rotors to go with, slotted rotors, awesome on the front, and a couple of brake lines. So if you need a brake kit for your car, contact the crew at Hopper Stoppers. What I did was actually set my whole stub axle down so that they could check that this was going to work. This is very similar to an MS123 Crown. I believe it might even be the same kit. So, but you can just send down your stub axle. They can modify it to suit, and you can end up with a set of billet 4-pots on the front of your car, just like these ones. Don't even have to pack my own wheel bearings. It actually comes and sands my engine bay and packs my wheel bearings. My man.
Pay me in beer.
Are you taking note, Gussie? Because you're going to have to do this on your patrol.
Yeah.
There's a bearing left.
Go get some gloves on. Forever learning at the skid factory, learning every day. The bearings that we ordered were wrong. There's actually two types of bearings for 9-inch diffs. There's a small bearing and a large bearing. The center I've got is actually a small bearing, but the 35 spline True Trac takes a large bearing. So the guy I got the diff off has a special type of bearing which is center. We're going to put it in. Also, speaking of learning, we've got Dave here. I've done this job before and I cocked it up. That's why I've got Dave, who's done it many a times. Old fella lives around the corner, so
let me cock it up.
Don't be scared to ask for help, because it's good to get some help like this from mates like Dave.
I reckon that's good. That's nearly a full tooth of depth there.
Looking alright, Davo?
High performance, mate.
High performance.
Fella, wind the boost right up. Okay?
Note to self, make sure there's a drain bung in there before you put oil in the diff. Why wasn't there a drain bung fitted, Alan?
I don't know, I had nothing to do with this project.
You got nothing to do with that at
Never
all.
would have happened if
This
I
is
was
the
in
first
charge.
time we've seen you this episode.
I'm just here to save the day.
Oh, the blister comes in.
The bearings on the floating hubs are submerged in oil, so we need to raise the oil level in the diff. Instead of the drain bung, the fill bung on the center, the oil level is actually at the axle height. So when the oil starts flowing out of that axle is when the diff is full. A little bit too much, but the diff is full. Oh, it's all on the handbrake shoes now. Cock. Probably a good thing we filled the brake rotor with diff oil, because we actually found that, I mean, it's on there pretty solid, but wouldn't want that to come loose.
It's actually fixed.
And
Problem solved.
what, you reckon roll like that? No, because it's on the leading edge, man. That'll just cause... It's $46 in stock, so I'll just replace them.
Sure.
But I think I've got to dismantle that whole thing actually, so...
Just spread it.
Drain the diff oil again. Oh, it's heavy. Pretty special moment rolling your project car when it's back on all fours out of the shed.
Doesn't it have an engine?
What are you talking about? We're still waiting on a tail shaft. GJ Drivelines have made it, they have sent it, but it just hasn't arrived in time, so thank you, Australia Post. I was going to say I'll put it in park, but it won't hold. We have the brakes all hooked up, everything's done. I'm yet to finish off the handbrake, but that's not too bad of a job really, it's pretty simple. The wheels, I will be honest, The rears look good. I like the bead lock, but I'm not really sold on them. They fit over the brakes, which is a plus. I do have another set of wheels, but they're also wider and keep going forward. They're also wider and they're not going to fit on the front. So it's one of those things where you got to make compromise for height and also looks. I've actually jacked it up a lot more now because the sump was pretty well scraping on the ground, but very, very stoked on the progress we've made. We started this, Alan, you know, we started this in mid-June. So that's like 2.5 months.
New world record.
A project of this caliber, we've done a pretty good job. I must say, like, to have the engine bay painted, everything done, you know, it's a record on our behalf, that's for sure. So, frothing on the progress. Next up is basically tail shaft. We've got to make an exhaust, so we've got a bunch of stuff from Golby's for that. We've got some vibrant oval pipe, which I don't know if we'll use. We did order it because I wanted to keep the ground clearance at a maximum, but now I'm thinking that the exhaust may be the sacrificial height item.
Which is better to take out, the exhaust or the transmission pan?
Yeah.
That's what you've got to decide.
Definitely the exhaust. So waiting on that, and then basically next episode will be kind of buttoning things up and heading to the dyno, actually getting it tuned with Kai at Night Family Motorsport. Following that, I'm keen to drive the wheels off this thing. There's plenty of events coming up later on in the year. What was Bolo's event called? What's that?
Talk time.
At Lakeside, 8th Mile Drags, possibly might head there, and also road trip. But
Going to take on the reigning champion, Wayno.
Oh, Wayno on the XE, yeah.
In his Barra.
Frothing on this, everything's come to mind and pretty well finished now, bar a few things. The interior is still not back together, but that's another job for a later day. So thanks for watching. Thank you for following along with the build. Next week we may have a Crown episode. Next week we may have something totally different. Maybe we can go sit at a cafe and talk about cars, Alan. How about that for entertainment?
It's the same as what we do when we're here.
Weekly free entertainment on YouTube every week, every Wednesday, weekly. See you, homies. Cheers.
It's unusual to be able to push a car and turn it as you're pushing it and it actually moves.
What do you mean?
Because you can't do that with my car.
Oh,
and you can't do that with Kevo.
Because of the spool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that Eaton True Trac thing is worth it just for that.
What about a roundabout
If anyone has a car with a big tyres and a spool, they'll feel the pain. You push it and then it goes, and then you let go of it and it goes back to where it was before because it's just wound up and sprung back.
Isn't that expensive? Maybe I'll buy you one for Christmas.
Hook me up.
Yours is 35 spline, eh?
Sure is. Get me an anti-roll bar and a front sway bar as well.
What, Eaton True Trac, anti-roll bar, sway bar,
and
index plugs.
Index plugs that aren't fouled. And, put Dave on the payroll for a year to change the plugs.
Shout out to Dave. What do you reckon about the height, Dave?
Dave's not happy with the height.
No. Yeah, but...
Oh, this is a good angle down here. This is a good thumbnail.
100 mil off the ground.
The lowest point of the car is the transmission sump plug, which is 100 mil.
Until you put the exhaust on.
Yeah, something like that.
What do you reckon, Gussie?
Very cool.
Prefer this or Dad's?
Dad's.
So, I'm same here, bro.
Who
Who doesn't want a supercharged?
I was like, bro, now's your time to ruin your inheritance.
No, I thought I'm in the wheel for the Crown.
You got your own Crown.
My talking brake pad.
Probably a good thing we
A
feel.
roll I may cause a problem in the future. Better fix me now.
Hang on. You got any messages for any mates, Maka, or what? Nothing. Oh.